We'll be getting started in about 2 minutes, everybody. Thank y'all for being here, those who are already here. I appreciate it. If you cannot hear me or if something's looking weird on the other side, feel free to drop it in the comments and let me know. I'm able to see those. Okay, I think I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Thank you guys for coming, those of you who are here. I really appreciate it. This is also going to be recorded and it's going to be on the YouTube channel. So if I go fast or if there's any content you want to hear again, or if there's anything you have questions about, you can go back and check out the video, or of course you can just reach out to me. But we're going to go ahead and get started. This is the BRRRR Strategy Webinar. The BRRRR stands for Buy, Rehab, Rent, Refinance, Repeat. And we're going to get into that and get into some of those steps and why I choose to utilize it as a way to build my portfolio. First of all, in a world where we've got tons of information at our fingertips all the time, why am I throwing another webinar out into cyberspace? And the reason, first of all, is I'm an investor myself. I'm a realtor. I'm an investing coach. And I love creating this content. I enjoy connecting with people, talking with people about how real estate allows, the everyday guy or gal who doesn't make a ton of money, but works hard and can be strategic, can allow that person to build generational wealth for their family and for their future. And the thing it has done for me, real estate investing, has been that it's unlocked my time. And I think that that's something that can do for everybody. But so I'm passionate about all that, and that's why I like to share. And I'm trying to expand my my reach in that way and being able to connect with people. Although there's a ton of information readily available to everyone, what is difficult is to be able to connect with people who are doing it. A lot of times the people you see on the internet who are creating this kind of content, those folks may be hard to actually connect with individually. Sit down, allow them to look at your unique situation and your unique goals and desires and speak into that. And that's exactly what I want to do as an investing coach, is be able to sit down with folks, enter into their scenario, understand their situation and what they're trying to achieve, and then kind of be the person that brings some accountability and some inspiration and some confidence to help you get to your first deal, if investing in real estate is something that you want to do. And so that's what I'm kind of the void that I'm trying to fill by putting this kind of content out there and trying to do something like another webinar when there's a million already out there. So my name is Jimmy Stainback. My wife is Lindsay. We've been kind of on our real estate journey for about 10 years. I guess 9 years. But we started out by house hacking. Really, we started out by doing an owner-occupant financing. We moved into a house. We just bought it as our own house. We moved in there, fixed it up, lived there for a year, and then we moved out. And instead of selling it like a lot of people would do and making a profit, we decided we were going to rent it. And once we did that once, we realized, hey, this is pretty cool. This makes a lot of sense. And this is something we could do while we're working our full-time jobs and build this and grow this. So that led us into our first house hack, and then we did multiple house hacks. And then we started, after getting tired of house hacking, getting tired of moving, we've started utilizing the BRRRR strategy. But we did all that. We now have 22 doors. We did all that while we were both working full-time jobs. I was a coach in a private Christian school. She was a nanny. And we were building our family over this period of time. We've had 4 children. My wife has since stepped away from her job, probably about 4 years ago now. But we've done it without ever making a whole lot of money. We never had impressive salaries. We didn't always have a ton of time. We did have pretty decent flexibility, but we're always very busy. We were building our family, and we were able to scale up to 22 doors at this point. I've now been full-time in real estate for 1 full year. It was May of last year that I stepped away from my job as a football coach and a strength and conditioning coach in a private Christian school. So that's how we ended up here. Well, I guess maybe I can't keep my door count straight. It's either 22 or 21 doors. We recently sold one of our rentals, so that's probably the discrepancy. But 21 doors, 22 doors, most of them are single family. 4 house hacks. We've now done 7 BRRRR deals, which is what we're about to talk about. The total value of the portfolio is about $6 million, thanks to the rapid appreciation of the last few years. And the really cool thing, the thing I love the most, that I'm most excited about, most grateful for, is the fact that our rental income, our rental profit, is greater than our monthly obligations. That's not to say that we're just totally financially free, high rollers, big shots, but we live a pretty simple, modest life, and we live beneath our means and keep our finances in check. So we kind of have a pretty low monthly budget total obligation anyways. And now the portfolio that we've created or slowly accumulated now throws off more money than that dollar amount. So that really equates to a lot of time freedom and flexibility. I'm still working. I still love what I'm doing. I'm still looking for deals, doing this kind of thing, but it just allows a lot more flexibility, a lot more freedom to do what you want to do instead of being worried about making ends meet and punching the clock to earn a living. And I know that this is absolutely attainable for anyone who wants to practice the steps and have the discipline and have the strategy, and have a long-term vision. When you want to go quit your job in a year and do this, it's a little bit harder to do. It's a little bit easier to flop and get burnt out. But if you're willing to commit to 5 or 8 years of a process of going from working your full-time job to eventually being a full-time investor, I think it's absolutely reasonable, absolutely doable for anyone. And that's another reason why I'm doing this and putting this content out here, to hopefully help people along on that journey. I talked about this on the last webinar, so I'm going to go very fast, but just why real estate in general. Why do I love real estate? Why do I think it's the best asset class to be purchasing? The reason is because it's a tangible asset and it's controlled by you. That's one of them. Compare that to the stock market. You're putting your money into the stock market. You can't touch that. You can't see it really. It's intangible and it's totally out of your control. Whether you buy or sell that stock is in your control, but once that money is invested, you can't control it. It's up to that company that you purchased or that mutual fund or whatever it may be. There's very favorable supply and demand factors. When you look at thinking about buying a rental, a lot of times the thing that makes the most sense is buying something that is like equivalent to a starter home. And that's what most of my rentals are. And the supply and the demand equation there is absolutely in favor of those who own those assets, because it's harder and harder to afford a home, and people are renting, and also because the demand is very small for this type of home, that's obviously going to cause the supply is very small. The supply is small. The demand is extremely high, which causes the assets to appreciate in value. And also, it's very difficult for builders to build a home that is modest and affordable, in the median range, and still make money on it, which is why a lot of times the new supply that you see hitting the market is a step above the starter home. You're not going to see many first-time home buyers being able to afford a new build, and that's the supply that the builders are bringing to the market. Most of those are just a little bit out of the reach of the first-time home buyer, and all that to say, supply and demand is in your favor if you're owning single-family rentals that are kind of in that median home price range, first-time home buyer. Tons of opportunity everywhere. That's another great thing about this, is that opportunity is plentiful. There's, you drive by 100 homes, 1,000 homes a day, and you understand what a home is. You understand what makes a good house a good house. It's not rocket science. The opportunity's there. If you want to go for it, you can do it. The historical data supports the quality of this asset. We've seen the home values in America over the course of time increase, up and to the right. There's of course lots of dips, there's crashes, but then everything eventually it's going to recover. And if you have a long-term trajectory, you're going to end up doing well. And that's why I'm big on the hold, buying and holding. I'm not a big flipper, although that's a great business model. I just like to hold because I know over the long term, if I hold it long enough, I'm going to win. Time is on my side. And then the last thing I love about real estate is that it's easily and typically leveraged. The ability to put leverage on an asset is it's the rocket fuel to financial freedom. It's the rocket fuel to building wealth. You are able to tie up a valuable asset at pennies on the dollar. So your down payment, whether it's 20% down, or whether you're a first-time home buyer, or you're moving in and you're putting 5% down, $5 can buy $100 worth of real estate, or $2 can buy $10 worth of real estate. The bottom line is you're able to leverage your money, which you're not able to do in other asset classes. So that's another reason why I love real estate. All those reasons. Again, these things all kind of filter into the idea of financial freedom. All these things are what happens when you buy and hold real estate, as opposed to buy it, fix it, and flip it. But if you buy it and you put a tenant in and it generates income, all these things happen. Cash flow, your tenant's reducing your debt. The home is historically going to appreciate. No guarantees there, but if you hold it long enough, that's eventually going to happen. And then there's massive tax advantages to being able to hold real estate, income real estate. The IRS, for whatever reason, the government just treats a real estate investor differently from a tax standpoint, and there's lots of advantages there. So that's the summary. Why am I worth listening to? And also why is real estate such an awesome asset? And now I want to get into the BRRRR method. So the BRRRR stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and then repeat. And basically, just quickly, the idea is you're out looking for a discounted property, a home that's in distress, or a seller who's in a hurry to sell. You're trying to find some way that you can purchase a house at a little bit of a discount, knowing that you're going to be able to renovate that home in order to push the value and force the appreciation. So you're basically using short-term money. So whether you have $300,000 cash in the bank, which is great for you. I sure don't. Or you go get a hard money loan, or you find wealthy individuals who are willing to lend their money for a guaranteed return and be the bank. You get short-term money to go buy that asset that's distressed. Then you renovate the asset. Then you put a tenant and you turn that asset into an income stream. And then once that asset is stabilized, in other words, it's renovated and it's producing income, then you can go get traditional financing, which is, any loan that you would go get from a regular old mortgage broker. The only exception is you have to clarify this is an investment loan. So you're going to have a little bit higher interest rate, and there's going to be slightly different loan to value requirements. But basically what you do is you get a new value on that property. So you bought it for 200, you put 50 in it, so you're in it for 250. But then the house is now worth 350 because of the rehab that you put into it and the way that you force the appreciation. So then the long-term lender comes and looks at that and says, okay, we've done an appraisal. This house is worth 350. We are willing to lend 75% loan to value. Okay, so 350 times 0.75. That means we will do a cash out refinance at $260,000. So that's 75% of that 350. Okay, so we have 350 is the new value. The new lender says we'll do 75% of that. So that's 260 grand. And then you basically take that 260 grand and you are going to pay off the short-term money. So whether that is hard money, a hard money lender, whether that is your own funds that you pulled from and you're replenishing those funds, or if you're borrowing from a private money investor, a wealthy individual who wants to get a guaranteed return on their money, you are taking that long-term cash out refinance and you are replenishing the funds to those whoever lent you the short-term money. And what are you left with? The idea is what you're left with is a renovated and stabilized asset that is producing income, that is going to appreciate over the long term. It is tangible, it is controlled by you, and it is profitable. And if you do this correctly, and if you can find the right deal and keep your renovation costs in check, you can do this without actually having a whole lot of your money left in the deal. In some cases, with no money at all left in the deal. So that's a quick synopsis of the BRRRR method. And the reasons why I love the BRRRR method and why I'm using it. I started out house hacking and utilizing owner-occupant financing to put low money down and get into deals and secure and acquire assets with less money. And now I'm using the BRRRR method because I want to be able to secure and acquire assets that are going to produce income and that are going to appreciate over the long term. And I want to do that with as little of my own money as possible, because again, the leverageability, if that's even a word, the ability to leverage the asset is the thing that's going to supercharge your wealth building journey. And so if I can secure more assets with less money, and that asset is going to pay for itself, and that asset is going to pay for the costs of the debt that I have secured on that asset, then that's a good deal for me, because I'm still young enough to where, man, I can think 15, 20, and 30 years into the future and know that again, going back to those other slides, the 4 things that are happening with buy and hold real estate: the debt is being reduced, the house is appreciating, the property's cash flowing, and I'm getting tax advantages. All those collectively working over a 10, 15, 20, 30 year period are going to be very powerful for wealth generation and for building towards retirement. So point number 1, I can do this with less money. This allows me to do more with less of my own capital, my own cash. Number 2 is you can create equity. So in other words, you are, by way of your intellect, your strategies, your rehab, in some cases, the sweat equity and the hard work you're putting into a property, you're able to create equity. It's like, you're creating money out of thin air in a sense. This house was worth $200, but the $50,000 that you put into it it doesn't mean that it's now worth 250. That $50,000 with your intellect and your strategy and whatever else you did, you turn that into maybe 125 or 150, right? And so that $200,000 asset with $50,000 of your money is now worth 300 grand, right? Or whatever. But the idea is you are creating equity, and that's a very powerful um, strategy, and it's a great thing to be able to do. And then the third really big reason is you can recycle money and relationships, which is really awesome. The idea of, if I can go build a relationship with someone or with a hard money lender, and they trust me, I trust them, they know about my business, they know about my plans, and they maybe have 300 grand that they're willing to lend out to me. I can basically take that 300 grand and I can take that relationship that I've created with this person and I can put them in a deal, right? And then I go find the long-term lender and I refinance at the end of that BRRRR, and then that 300 grand goes back to that relationship. And then that relationship, that 300 grand says, "Hey, you ready to do another deal?" And I say, "Yeah, let's do another deal." And I go find another deal. And then I use that same relationship and I use that same 300 grand and then I go do it again. And so, in other words, there is, in some senses, unlimited resources. If you can foster a handful of relationships with, whether it's hard money lenders or private money lenders, and you can start to create somewhat of a resume, or you are gaining experience, and maybe you already have that experience. Maybe you're a real estate agent, or you're an appraiser, or you're a general contractor, or you're a handyman, or you are in some kind of finance. I mean, everybody has skill sets that they can offer and that they can market themselves in such a way, but basically you are able to tap into unlimited well of resources if you understand this strategy, and you can, again, strengthen that relationship with whoever is the source of those funds. So they trust you. They know they're going to get their investment back, and they know that you're operating in such a way that you're doing something great for yourself, but you're also doing something great for them, whether it's a hard money lender or a private money lender, regardless. And then the fourth reason, and it all kind of collectively, this is kind of all encompassing the first three, but start doing more deals with less money means you can start sooner, right? Or doing one deal with less money means you can start sooner. If you thought you needed 50 grand or 100 grand to do a deal, that might have meant you're going to wait 5 or 10 years. But when you hear me say you can do a deal with 10 grand, right? Or 15 grand, that means, hey, I can start right now. So you can start now. And that means you can go faster and do more deals. And then that means you can own these deals longer. Time is on your side. The sooner you start and the longer you own real estate, the better off you're going to be because time is the greatest and most powerful piece of this equation. And that's not to say that if you're older, it's too late. It's never too late, but it's also never too early. So I would love to see folks get started sooner and not wait until you have this bank account that's busting at the seams and you're going, well, I need to put this money to use. I don't know what to do with it. It's better to go ahead and get started early and keep that bank account balance low and get that money out into tangible assets that are working for you, so that money's working for you instead of sitting in there rotting due to inflation in the bank. Okay, we're going to look at 2 case studies, 7:20, so I'm going to try to be done in the next 15 or 20 minutes, I think. But just 2 case studies of 2 of the BRRRR deals that we've done recently. And I'm going to give you kind of the numbers. And, what you'll see here is that these numbers are absolutely unremarkable. These are very much base hit deals. The cash flow in and of itself is not something that's going to change anybody's life. But the whole purpose and the power of the BRRRR strategy is that you're able to secure an asset that is going to pay for itself and appreciate. And again, just keep in mind, this is a long-term game and this is a long-term strategy. And when I say long-term, it might be 5 or 10 years, but it's just not something where you're going to get rich in a year, right? And the idea would be that you are trying to build a portfolio of strong, solid assets over time with as little money as possible. So this is the Roswell Ranch. You can just see, it may be hard to see on your screen, but before pictures on the left, just a couple, and after pictures on the right, before the renovation. So this is just a simple 3-2 ranch that we bought in Roswell. It's in Cobb County. Most of Roswell's in Fulton, but Cobb County has lower taxes, so I was excited to have something in Roswell that's not in Fulton. And we bought it for $280. The rehab was about 30 grand. That included basically kitchen, so countertops, cabinets, appliances. We did a lot of sheetrock work, a lot of painting, floors. We did some vanities in the bathroom. We changed up the lighting, but it was overall very cosmetic. And so the total money invested, $280 in the purchase, $30,000 in the renovation. That means I'm in the house for $310. Right. And then at the end of that process, when the long-term lender went out to do an appraisal, it came back at $385. Now, let's back up and talk about the two big pieces of the deal are finding the short-term money, and then, of course, doing the rehab. That's in the middle. And then finding the long-term money is the piece at the end. So the short-term money and long-term money, super important. This particular deal, well, first of all, also, I found this deal. This was an expired listing on the MLS. I do find stuff on the MLS often, and if you are just shrewd and you are consistent in looking at deals and sending offers that make sense for you, you can absolutely find stuff on the MLS, contrary to what you'll hear, that you always have to find off-market deals. It's not true. You can find stuff through a realtor. You can find stuff on the MLS. You can find stuff on Zillow. So found this as an expired listing on the MLS and negotiated it to $280. I used a hard money lender to buy this property. So with a hard money lender, they're going to be, in most cases, they're going to require you to put some amount of money down on the purchase, and then they're going to fund the rehab at 100%. So in this case, I had to put 15% down on this deal, and then they were willing to fund 100% of the rehab. I actually had some extra cash, and so I just decided to fund the rehab myself, knowing that I was going to recoup that capital. So I put here that they were willing to do 100% of the rehab, and that's typical of hard money lenders. But in this case, I handled the rehab. But regardless, whether it's my money or someone else's money, the all-in amount is the all-in amount. So you're always looking at the purchase price plus the renovation, and that compared to the after repair value or the new value. And so that hard money loan was at 9.5% interest for a 12-month term. This was back in February of 2022. So this was before interest rates started going up. So this now, I have a couple of long-term loans now at 8% or 8.5%, and that would have been unheard of and unthought of back in February of 2022. So this was when long-term, traditional, conventional interest rates were in the fours probably, and so this was a hard money rate that was at 9.5% and paying interest only. So when I went to do the long-term loan portion, so the cash out refinance, I had to go find usually most folks, especially those who are at the beginning of their journey, are going to go get a conventional investor loan. So you have conventional loans, which is backed by the government, Fannie and Freddie. There's requirements. There are pretty rigid terms that you have to fall within in order to be able to borrow. But most folks qualify for that just fine. And in my case, though, once you have more than 10 conventional loans, they will stop lending to you. So they're not going to lend to you on any more investment deals after 10. So that means you have to go find other long-term money, other places that are not backed by the government, that are not Fannie or Freddie. Those are called non-conforming loans. Those are called non-conforming loans. So it got a little bit tougher for me, but for most folks, you could probably just go reach out to your mortgage broker and get a conventional investor loan and do a cash out refinance in this case. So I had to use a credit union, and The good news was that they're willing to lend at 80% of the loan to value. Most cases, what I've heard, what's most common is 75% loan to value. So that means whatever the new value is, the appraised value, they're going to do a cash out refi of 75% of that. So in other words, the higher the LTV, the easier it is to recoup your money. So when I heard from this credit union that they would do 80%, I said, hey, that's great. That's going to make it a little easier for me to recoup my money. But the downside was in this case was that it was a 20-year amortization. So again, if you can have a 15-year amortization, is going to be a larger payment and harder to cash flow, but you're getting a greater principal pay down. And then a 30-year is what I always try to get because it makes the payment the smallest, it increases the cash flow, and it gives you better margin, but you're paying off the house much slower. This particular credit union would only do a 20-year amortization. So it is what it is, but I took it. I didn't have many other options, and I was able to get this at a 4.5% interest rate. So all that to say, my 80% of the loan to value of the new value was $308,000. So that was only about $2,000 away from my all-in amount. So I bought it for $280. I put 30 into it. That's $310. So there's $310,000 that has to be redistributed to someone else, whether that is replenishing my own funds or paying back a hard money lender or paying back a private money lender. Basically, I was able to take this new cash from the long-term lender and pay everybody back, including myself, with the exception of $2,000, because I was able to pull out $308K. So after pulling out that $308K, paying off the hard money lender, recouping the funds that I had put into the deal, my principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, so my all-in monthly fixed expenses were $2,340. I rented the place out for $2,650. So that creates a $310 margin between the PITI and the rent. So PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. That's not a full picture. There's also expenses, things that come up, but just keep in mind, in one of these houses, one of these BRRRRs, it's right after I have renovated the house. So I've been in the house, I know what's going on, and I've fixed everything that needs to be fixed, and I've updated things. And so there's not a whole lot of expenses, unexpected expenses that pop up in these kind of situations, especially early on. But nonetheless, I still put in $1,000 of annual expense, just unexpected expenses, maintenance. And my annual profit is $2,720. So again, like I said, that's not anything to get excited about in and of itself, that annual profit of $2,000. But what is very exciting is when you consider that I'm making $2,000 a year in profit, and I technically only have $2,000 invested in this house. And so that's 100% return right there on my money. Not to mention the fact that this home is going to continue to, just like we talked about, it's going to continue to appreciate. Rents are going to continue to go up. The debt is going to be reduced over time. And because I made such little money on this, $2,000, once this house is depreciated, which is a whole separate talk, but suffice it to say that depreciation allows you to take a passive paper loss against a house, even if you didn't lose money. So after I depreciate this house, I'm going to show that I lost about $7,000 on this house. Even though I made $2,700, I'm going to show a loss of $7,000. And then that $7,000 loss can be taken against other losses, taken against other income, or it can be rolled forward into future real estate gains that can be reduced by that $7,000 loss. So again, that's the impact of the tax advantages of buy and hold real estate. And then so the other thing to keep in mind is that I on paper I have immediate equity of about $70,000, $75,000 of equity. And so as that tenant pays down my monthly note and it slowly appreciates, that equity gap is going to get bigger and bigger, and I'm going to hold this house for 10 or 15 or 20 years. And so I know I'm going to win in the long term. Even though this is a base hit on the front end, I know ultimately it's going to be a home run, and I have very little money invested in it. And so it's something that I can get excited about. You really have to understand the big picture and keep a long-term trajectory in order to be able to get excited about what's going on here. But once you understand it and get the picture and get the full scope, it's easy to get fired up about a $2,000 win, $2,000 per year win. Okay, 733. All right. This is just another case study. This was actually the one we did right after I finished the Roswell Ranch that I just showed you. This week I call this the scary house because when we were walking through it, my daughter just famously said, "This house is so scary." And truthfully, it did look scary at the beginning of the rehab. It was neglected, had been vacant. There was just nasty stuff all over the counters and the floors, and was definitely a deeply distressed asset. Excuse me. I found this house. Actually, I didn't find this house. This house came to me. I have a connection with someone who does a lot of deals, a lot of land deals, new construction, lots of things always going on, very deeply entrenched in the real estate market in this particular area. And I had lunch with them and I said, "Hey, I'm looking for more deals." And this was actually this house was part of a parcel that was purchased. They really just wanted the land in order to do a new build on the land. They didn't want to deal with a deeply distressed, nasty house. And so they kept the land and they sold me this house. And I was able to buy it for $210,000. And I put $65,000 into the rehab. It was a very extensive rehab. There was tons of water in the basement. The basement had to be trenched out and waterproofed. We had to refinish the hardwood floors. We took out a couple walls. We totally gutted pretty much the whole house. And it was very extensive. So the rehab got pretty pricey. This particular property, I utilized a private money loan. So I have a connection with an individual that has cash that they are looking to or willing to invest basically and become the bank for me. And so they're getting a return on their money, a guaranteed return on their money. Well, guaranteed in the sense that it's collateralized by this home. And if I don't pay them their guaranteed return, then they get the home. And so I'm borrowing the purchase price, 210, and I also borrowed 100% of the rehab budget from that person. And so in this particular case, I was paying a 10% interest rate. And the good thing about private money is that there's no upfront fees in most cases. With hard money lenders, just like banks, they're gonna nickel and dime you and fee you to death, and it adds up very quickly, as opposed to with a private money investor or private money lender. Those things don't usually come into play. So again, after the renovation probably took 4 months. Longer. It was longer than I would have anticipated. I went through 2 contractors, and then had to finish the house myself with my employee. And it was a learning experience in the sense that it's just difficult to deal with contractors, and when you find a good one, you got to hold on to them and treat them right. But all that to say, when the deal was finally finished, the value immediately after we finished and we got the appraisal back, it came back at $315K. And so once again, same credit union lender, same kind of terms, but their prices, because this was, by the time this rehab had been finished, I believe that it was probably close to July or August. And so interest rates had started to climb, and his interest rates had climbed as well. So I was at a 5.25%. And that put so 80% of that was 252. So in this case, again, my total invested was 275,000. That's what was due back to the private money lender. And yet the new value and the cash out refinance only produced 252,000. So that means I had to take the 252 and pay back the private money lender, and then also put on my own cash, which essentially served as a down payment and paid the difference back to the private money lender. And so in this, the net result still was that I have a $315,000 house, and I put about 25,000 of my own money into it, which means I'm still less than 10% down. You know, I'm still acquiring and securing this asset for less than 10% down, and it's already rented, and it's rehabbed nicely, and it's going to appreciate. And in fact, this house, because of the area that we purchased it in, we knew it was going to be up and coming. There was some development going on close by. It's already up to probably about 350 in value, and should continue to climb. But again, very, very modest, unimpressive cash flow numbers here. But I get excited about it because I'm keeping a long-term trajectory, and I'm keeping in mind the 4 ways that buy and hold rentals will build wealth. So $2,000 PITI, my rent was $2,250. That gave me a $250 margin, and then my $1,000 of annual expenses. So that means I'm making somewhere around $2,000 a month of profit. And once again, I'm going to be, because of depreciation, that $2,000 not only doesn't get taxed, but I show a loss, and I'm going to be able to write that off against my W-2 income or my real estate income as an investor, or as an agent or a consultant, and or I can roll that loss forward into future years to offset other real estate gains. But once again, when you consider $2,000 in profit, and I invested 25 grand, that's somewhere shy of 10% return, not including the appreciation and the equity that is created through this method. So again, a house that I'm excited about. I'm grateful for this project, and I'm continuing to use this method to build my portfolio. And so thank you, those of you who hung in there and stayed in and listened to the whole presentation. I really appreciate it. I am, like I said, my name is Jimmy Steinbach. I'm a real estate investor and a coach or consultant, however you want to, whatever term you prefer. But I want to come alongside people and help you accomplish whatever it is you've set out in the real estate world. I'm also a buyer's agent for investors. I love working with investors. And I also am a buyer's agent for retail investors for retail buyers and retail listings. So any way that I can help you, I would love to. Please reach out. You can follow me on Instagram or YouTube at Steinbach Realty. And my email address is right there, and then also my cell phone. So thank y'all so much for tuning in and hanging in there. And please reach out if you have any questions. And if there's anything else that you want to revisit, like I said, this will be recorded and it'll be on my page. So, all right. Thanks so much, everybody.